Breaking news, everyone. Donald Trump have put sweeping tariffs across the board, and this is going to have a massive effect on banking and lending.
You be open to a pause in tariffs to allow for negotiations?
Well, we're not looking at that. We have many countries that are coming to negotiate deals with us, and they're going to be fair deals. And in certain cases, they're going to be paying substantial tariffs. There'll be fair deals. As you know, I spoke this morning with the Prime Minister of Japan, and we had a very good conversation. They're coming. And I said, one thing, you're going to have to open up your country, because we sold no cars, like 0 cars in Japan, and they sold millions of cars into our country. They don't really take our agriculture, a little bit of it just to keep us slightly happy, but they don't take what they're supposed to be taking. So we have a great relationship with Japan. We're going to keep it that way, but they're coming in to meet, and other countries are coming in. With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on. So they've gone for years. They've become a rich country because of people, again, that were in the White House that allowed this to happen. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year they're making us on trade, and it shouldn't be that way.
Now, in this video, we're going to break down on how this is going to affect lending and your credit scores, and what you can do in order to protect yourself, and how this is going to have a massive effect on everyone in the banking system and consumers in whole.
Now, this channel is designed to help you no matter where you are in your credit journey and how to leverage your credit to make money. So if you like that kind of content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and you could go to my website to pick up this free heart inquiry removal package. And the link is in the description and the pinned comments below.
$5 trillion. That's the value of global shares that have been wiped out in just 3 days after the latest round of U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs. Well, Chinese markets were the worst hit in Asia. The government is reassuring investors it will stabilize the market.
And part of the reason for that is that I think it's still uncertain whether Trump plans to use this solely for the purpose of just reducing the trade deficits in certain countries, or if there's a bigger goal in mind.
A bigger goal, such as using tariffs as a possible negotiation tool with China. The response dimmed prospects of an imminent deal between the US president and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, sending shares in Shenzhen's market falling more than 9%. The Shanghai Composite lost 7.34%, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng plunged by more than 13%, its biggest drop since the global financial crisis in 2008. Beijing's sovereign fund Huijin has moved to stabilize markets, increasing holdings of Chinese exchange-traded funds. And officials have reassured foreign investors that China will remain a stable place to do business. Countries in Asia manufacture many of the world's goods and rely heavily on the US market. The region was therefore hit the hardest by Donald Trump's tariffs, and is particularly sensitive to fears that a global trade war could trigger an American recession. Chinese state media are downplaying the market turmoil, saying the economy is resilient enough to absorb any shocks.
Now, when it comes to China, we cannot act like China is a victim in this whole situation, because let's not forget, with the pandemic, Taiwan had to notify the rest of the world that it was a pandemic going on, and China released flights, which was causing decimation to other economies around the world, because they didn't want their economy to be the only economy that took a hit. And they hid the fact of the origins of what this COVID-19 was. They knew it came from a lab, and if they were transparent, the world could have worked together to stop it, but they hid that fact and caused not only billions in losses, and we can't probably even know how much loss that was around the world in economies, but the loss of life of people, loved ones, even your own loved one, that they were the root cause of that. So, there's no good guys in the situation. And on top of that, a lot of these products coming from China, even like some of the braiding hair that I'm wearing right now, I'm not going to keep it in for long, but they are putting chemicals that can have carcinogenics in it. And regulations is not up to our standards. And we're consuming and buying these products. And just like in India, they make pharmaceuticals for us, but they do a lot of polluting in their own water. And when you're talking about a lot of these places, if we're talking about the environment, the US isn't the main cause of these environmental issues. A lot of it is manufacturing in these other places that don't have these kind of regulations. And so when you add that on to what we already had, our economy hit by the pandemic and a breakdown of supply chains, because America stopped its own manufacturing. Just like with the mask, we had to go and get it from China. who caused the pandemic. Let's just be clear on that. And a lot of the media is not going to talk about it because Hollywood takes big money from China. Other, even politicians on both sides, are being funded by China. And so there's a lot of influence from China, even in colleges. And it's not just China alone, it's just billionaires all together. That's why I said red or blue, neither is for you. So a lot of choices that they're making is not in your best interest. It's actually in their donors' interest, which is not you. And so when you look at that, with China actually being penalized, it is just, and we have to watch products coming in from other nations, and we need to develop our own manufacturing. Now, let's start off with what is a tariff. Now, a tariff is a tax on an imported product. Now, what it's designed to do is to actually charge that foreign company for actually gaining access to that nation's market and economy to sell their goods and services. That tariff is actually supposed to help businesses inside of your country to resist competition, because with the tariff on that product, it makes it more expensive and actually encourage the citizens to buy products made in their own country, giving those corporations more of an advantage. And what it leads to for that country not to actually have to pay tariffs, for them to actually build factories or to produce in that country so they can evade those tariffs. Now, I, coming from the auto industry, working for Ford Motor Company, really hurt auto workers, especially back when I was working for Ford starting in 1998. And a lot of times what you will see, if you have a foreign country bringing their cars in and given the same playing field as that home-based corporation, you'll see that in the United States, your cost of living is higher, and what you're going to pay for employees here is higher, and they cannot compete where you have cheap labor outside of the country. And if they're not being imposed on with tariffs, now it's really disincentivizing companies to build and manufacture in the United States. And many of us lost jobs because of that. And we saw many of these factories with Ford actually move to Mexico. And this is where they can be more competitive, to have a competitive playing field, which left a lot of us with our factories shut down and a loss of jobs. And so we did see with companies like Mercedes, they actually build in Alabama. You see Honda now building in Alabama, and that in turn have those foreign companies come here, build factories where Americans can get jobs to evade some of those taxes. Now, the downside with these tariffs, yes, it's going to make prices go up if Trump is not using this as a negotiation strategy. Now, from my expectation on what he's trying to do is to work around some of these other countries to force them not to do what happened in 2018. And what China's been doing is rerouting in other markets and still selling to the United States and building plants elsewhere, or selling to markets just like in Mexico, or even the markets in Canada, which they didn't have any tariffs and was still selling to the US market. Now, Russia, they believe, even was doing that, even though they had sanctions on them, selling to China uranium, and then we were buying uranium for China. So a lot of these countries that sanctions are put on, they do use that as a workaround. Now, reason why I expect that Donald Trump is using this as some kind of negotiation tool, and Donald Trump book, The Art of the Deal, that was published way back in 1987, one of his core negotiation strategies is, if you don't put a offer on the table that you're not ashamed of, it's a bad offer. So I believe he's trying to use this as a negotiation tool. But if we do not work this out within 90 days, the consumers is going to feel a big hit. Now, one of the things that he did prior to in his last presidency, when he added those tariffs, those were strategic tariffs. And that's what you need to have done. With his massive layoffs and cutbacks, plus these tariffs, if they stand, that's going to cause things in the economy to go up. And it can also cause, with these tariffs, massive layoffs and can cause a recession. So he better have a plan that this is a negotiation tool, because this can make our economy into a big mess, and how it would affect your credit if you have to actually pay more, let's say for a vehicle, then guess what? That is going to be more of a loan you need to qualify for. And if your DTI or debt to income cannot actually meet that loan requirement, you're going to get denied for credit. Or if you do meet that loan requirement, it's going to raise up your DTI because now cost of lending or for products that you have to get this big loan on is higher. Just like if you have actual things that has tariffs that's coming as imports to build homes, that would drive up the building costs. And so if you go to buy a home, then now those tariffs is going to make the cost of that home higher. And that can disqualify you now for getting a home. So these are the types of things that now, if you have more debt showing on your credit and you don't have big enough lines of credit, and I'm talking about revolving credit card lines, you're going to see your credit score take a hit and go down. And so one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you can see if you can increase your credit card lines at this point in time. See if you can get a soft pull increase, because one thing that's looked at on your credit report is debt to available credit, which is utilization, is 30% of your credit score. So if you can increase your existing lines of credit to bump it up, that will give you some playing room if you have to actually take out loans, or even if you need to buy something on your credit card and now the cost of goods are going up, you have a bigger line of credit and you won't take your credit score with your utilization. The second part, you're going to need to really clean up your credit. Cleaning up your credit is going to be majorly important at this time, because if you don't clean up your credit, you guys, then it's going to be very hard to qualify for things, because lending are going to tighten extremely in this time. And so what you want to make sure that you're doing is removing those negative items on your credit reports so you can get those approvals. Now, users in my elite credit system like Sean was able to go from a 612 credit score, where all his credit scores up to 770 in a matter of 6 months. And now he's at an 803 credit score. And now he was able to attain business credit through my business credit program. And that even leads us to you looking at getting business credit, because approvals are going to get harder, because a lot of times they're going to look at how much income you're making. If you have now a business, because these cost of goods are higher and you need to get lending, you can show that I have a business already going, and that can help me qualify for these loans and for lines of credit that can help you. Now, with those tariffs and you're doing a small business, I will look at things such as janitorial services or services in-house that don't require you to buy goods like Amazon drop shipping. I wouldn't go that route, because of course those things are going to get tariffs on it if you got to import them in. I would keep with service-based business, maybe even cutting lawns, lawn care, things like that. So you want to make sure that you are strategizing with your ideas. So hopefully this information was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comment section. But if you have more detailed questions for me, you can go to my website and all your questions go directly to my cell phone. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned.